Please be seated. So much of the good stuff of life happens around the dinner table. We gather with our families and friends, our closest companions, to share food and all the experiences of the day. Around the table, we celebrate milestones, lifting our glasses to savor the most important moments of our lives. Yet our gospel passage today also points to another aspect of the table. It calls us to notice the vulnerable people in our lives. It calls us to notice those who are not at the table. It calls us not only to notice, but to include. As I reflected on our gospel passage today, a scene from one of my very favorite movies came to mind. The film is called The Joy Luck Club, and it's based on Amy Tan's best-selling novel. I'm seeing some nods, so you all are familiar with it. The movie is very moving, and it has so many evocative stories and moments. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, because it is very worth seeing or reading. So I'll just want to share one tiny bit that speaks to our passage today. The Joy Luck Club chronicles the difficult and harrowing experiences and relationships of 4 Chinese women who immigrated to the United States. All 4 women settled in the Bay Area, and there they raised their daughters and their families in a society completely different than the one they had left behind in China. The women became best friends over the mahjong table. Their 4 grown daughters have grown up together as friends and sometimes rivals. One such rivalry occurs between 2 of the daughters, June and Waverly. Waverly is beautiful, sophisticated, and successful. She's top management in her company. She's bold and outspoken. June, on the other hand, is quiet, bookish, reserved, and introverted. Her career has been a little slower to launch. Next to Waverly, June feels insignificant and invisible. One night, an important occasion draws all 4 families together at the dinner table. The signature dish of the night is June's mother's famous crab. One of the crabs, though, did not turn out exactly right. It's not as pretty as all of the others. As the platter of crabs rounds the table, June serves herself the bad crab, while Waverly takes the best one. During dinner, Waverly makes some hurtful comments about June, and her mom seems to take Waverly's side instead of hers. After dinner, June confronts her mother. "You never see who I really am," she accuses. But June's mother looks deeply into her eyes. She takes off her beautiful jade necklace and places it around her daughter's neck. She says, "I see you. That bad crab, only you tried to take it. Everyone else wants the best quality. You think differently. Waverly took the best quality crab. You took the worst, because you have the best quality heart. I see you." In this story, June isn't flashy. She isn't the CEO. She isn't the one at the center of all the attention. By society's standards, Waverly is the best. June, however, thinks of everyone else before herself. She's humble, Her priorities are different. June wants the best for others. Wanting what's best for others, putting others before yourself, is exactly what Jesus is talking about in our passage today. Time and again in Jesus' ministry, he emphasizes the importance of all those interactions that go on around the table. For Jesus, the dinner table is like a tiny version of the kingdom of God, and he's always trying to show us examples of how that kingdom works. Of course, the whole concept is so foreign to us that it takes a lot of explaining, a lot of different examples. Even then, the way God's kingdom works is usually the exact opposite of our inclinations. You recall in Matthew chapter 20, 26, and 27, when Jesus and the 12 are seated around the table, he tells them, "Whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave." And later, at the Last Supper in Luke chapter 22, 25 to 27, the disciples are arguing again, even on that important night. Jesus gives them a different meaning of what it means to be great. He says, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, but not so with you. Rather, the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? But I come among you as one who serves." Then in our passage today, Jesus says, "Go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher.' For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." In all these examples, Jesus is showing us what is valuable in the kingdom of God. Everything that we usually equate with great is reversed. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then, as Jesus is often inclined to do, he goes on and makes things even more difficult. He says, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or brothers, relatives, or rich neighbors. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed." For Jesus, our compassion and our service to those around us are the important things. In God's kingdom, everyone is equal. There's no hierarchy. It's all about our attitude and our actions. Theologian Debbie Thomas writes, "When we dare to gather at Jesus' table, we are actively protesting the culture of upward mobility and competitiveness that surrounds us. But it's what we're called to do. Humble ourselves and place our hope in a radically different kingdom." Friends, a radically different kingdom sounds good to me. I want to be part of that. How can we be part of that? Our passage from the letter to the Hebrews has some good insight for us. The author writes, "Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it." Mutual love, let it continue. Yesterday, while we were doing the food pantry here at St. Mark's, I was at the celebration of a new ministry at St. Augustine's Episcopal Church, where the Reverend Julia Rusling was being installed as rector. And we read the passage in Hebrews that comes immediately after this. So the author continues, "Live in harmony with one another. Do not be arrogant, but associate with the lowly and do not claim to be wiser than you are. Friends, as all around us, society rewards the arrogant and the self-serving. May we remember that in God's kingdom, the last shall be first. Around God's table, there is love. Around God's table, there is harmony. Around God's table, there is hospitality and welcome. Our presiding Bishop Michael Curry likes to say there is plenty good room for all God's children. Here at St. Mark's, may we ensure everyone has a seat around God's table.